Welcome to Suddenly Different, where we explore stories and strategies for life when it doesn't go to plan. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, inviting you to join me on this journey. Sometimes life invites us to see things more clearly, not through grand gestures, but through quiet, undeniable moments that change everything. Today, I'm sitting with someone whose story feels like a soft, steady light. Kate Gniel is the heart behind The Glitter Effect, a podcast and community movement that celebrates the kind of people we often walk past without realizing just how much they hold the world together. Kate's journey hasn't always been glitter and grace. There was a moment when her son Harvey was diagnosed with leukaemia that cracked her heart open. But in that pain, she found something powerful: the strength of community, the kindness of strangers, and a deeper purpose that reshaped everything. From her childhood days raising money with handmade crafts to being named Manningham's Volunteer of the Year in 2024, Kate has always shown up for others. And now, through storytelling and connection, she reminds us that showing up is more than enough, and sometimes it's everything. Kate, I'm so honoured to have you here. Let's begin with your suddenly different moment and the light that followed.
Thanks, Leigh-Anne. That was an amazing intro.
Thank you. I just think it's so important that us everyday mortals get our shine, and it is so because seriously, we wouldn't say that about ourselves, would we?
Absolutely not.
So it's up to others to see it in us and then get it, acquire it through us.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. I like that.
So I'm delighted that you're here. And I wonder if you've got a suddenly different moment from childhood that made you be one of those entrepreneurial types.
Leigh-Anne, that's a really good question. And I've thought really hard about this. And I actually don't think there is that one particular moment in my childhood. I think it's just layers upon layers of who I've become from reflecting on my journey over the last few months, or the last 12 or 18 months when I've sort of taken this turn and really reflected that my thing is community. I looked at my journey and I looked at my childhood, and really I can remember way, way, way back. And you touched on it on the intro. And I would have been in primary school, sat on my bedroom floor with my best friend, and we were making potpourri lace door hangers. And yes, I am that old because a lot of people wouldn't even know what potpourri is. And we sold those to my very, very our patient family and friends to raise money for the RSPCA. I come from the UK and I was big in animal rights. And so together we did that. And I remember then doing diligently tracing magazines to sell to all my family and friends. And just so I suppose I've always had that heart, but it was just me. And I've always wanted to help. And then I ended up one of my jobs when I was 15. I was fortunate enough to be asked by a local family who had a young child. He must have been about 4 or 5 at the time, who had additional needs and needed help with his speech therapy and reading. So I would go a couple of days a week after school and go and help him. And again, that was, to me, I look back now and go, well, that was amazing. That was why I'm here, because I was helping. So I suppose all through my life, I've looked and I've always wanted to help. I thrive on connection and I get my energy from others. I'm also very comfortable in my own skin, but probably more later in life that's come more through. But I've always craved that feeling of being with people. And so I suppose, so in a long-winded kind of way, there's not one, it's just sort of layer upon layer that cemented that. And then now, obviously, down the track, since having a family, I've got involved in kinders and schools and things like that. So, it's all sort of become a bit different.
is the joy of community when you take part. I know my mother did. She never worked once I was born, but she was in the tuck shop and she was doing the netball registrations and always involved with the community side of things, which without people who do community work, we don't have those things.
Yeah, that's right.
We can't afford to have commercial businesses doing those things.
And that's right. Actually, no, it's quite remiss of me to say that as well, because it's in my family. My mum was a full-time, she worked full-time. So did my dad, but he worked further away. So wasn't as able to help, but always helped when he could. But my mum was very much that, would always put her hand up to help with kinder duties. And I can always remember her. I had to go every day to kinder because my mum was a helper, which at the time I was like, oh, and then now I'm like, oh, that's lovely. But then I had lots of more friends because I had the friends at both groups, it was really nice for me. But I always remember my mum being there saying I was a dancer. I did dancing from the age of 3. And my mum was one of those amazing women who, unfortunately, she hasn't passed the skill on to me, was the sewer. And so she would sew all our costumes and she would sew everybody else's costumes whose parents couldn't sew. And then my nana, her mum, was the same. And my other nana, that everyone's always done stuff. They've baked, they've done stuff in their wheelhouse, I suppose, and worked to their strengths. So I suppose when I take a deep dive, it's always there. Not that we were always sort of taught as children. I've got a brother who's a couple of years older than me. We were always taught to just be grateful for what we've got and who we are, because there's always people who are worse off than us. So I think that's always something that I've lived by.
Yes. It's a beautiful philosophy because honestly, that is what will keep society together. Without community, and I know that it is difficult in our busy lives. We're busy, we're both parents working, kids doing everything, but we have to remember that at the end of the day, it's community that are with us, right, through the hard times. And I know that personally. So talking about harder times, when your son Harvey was diagnosed, that would have changed your world at that time.
Yes.
Do you remember how you felt during that time, apart from wanting to be everything you could be for him?
Yeah, well, to set the scene, he's the youngest of 3 boys. I've actually got 2 older ones, but they're all quite close in age. So Harvey is the baby and he was just shy of turning. He was 2 3/4. So I had a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old who was just coming towards the end of prep. And then a 4-year-old who was really excited about finishing kinder and going to school. So it was all the feels, and we still had Santa and we had the tooth fairy and everything still had to happen. Whilst we were still trying to digest what on earth was going on in this space with Harvey. And I suppose initially when we got the news, it was my husband, Joel, and I just, again, I've thought about it, and for me, I felt numb, no emotion, and just, I suppose, utter disbelief, as if to think, this is not real. This is not us. They've got it wrong. It's not us. They're going to tell us it's okay. But no sooner had we got the diagnosis that we were then taken from the emergency department at Monash Children's Hospital in Melbourne, who I have to say are incredible. They took us then straight up to the children's cancer ward, which, up until that point, I'd never even really thought about there being that. So it was very confronting to see children had lost their hair, with feeding tubes, walking around with, IVs attached to them, looking very sick, walking through the corridors to be shown our room, which would then soon become our home for the next few weeks. So there were so many emotions, Leigh-Anne, going through that I look back now and I go, I actually don't think I had any, because I just couldn't process what on earth was going on. And there was our little baby, who's so sick, he can't do anything. He's almost not got any idea of what's going on. So in that way, I shut down. and I didn't want to talk to anybody. My husband, who is, as I said, incredible, he's an engineer. He's very practical and likes to understand things, whereas I suppose I'm more that sort of in the moment, I'll do that in the moment stuff. So we worked out pretty quickly. We worked very well together as a team, actually. Ironically, we've been together many years, but that moment we were like, yeah, we're actually a really good team with this. But I feel that he was the one that I said, I can't talk to people. You're going to have to tell people. And thank goodness for technology, because I was able to text people and tell them what was going on. And I said, I can't talk. So he did all the talking for me. And then, so I suppose eventually I came by and I spoke to someone who was not close to us as a family. It was actually my son's childcare coordinator. And I rang her to tell her what was going on, because she said, when you can you call me and just let me know what's going on? And because she wasn't overly emotionally attached to me, I felt like I could talk to her. And then I was okay. And then I'm like, okay, I can talk to other people now. It was a very strange time, and I've never had it since. I never want to go through that again, but it was very strange.
Yes, I can imagine. And I think our nervous system protects us, right? We can only take so much news, emotion, stimulation, and like new concepts, that our body goes into a shutdown mode so that we stay alive. That is the purpose. It is doing it to protect us. And so it is important, and it sounds to me as though you did this so elegantly, that we honor that space and allow ourselves to be right in accepting that it is not the time now to speak. Yes. It is not the time now to allow others to hold us physically, because we need to be strong.
Yes.
Right? We need all of our resources. And then, because of the way life led you to a safe way for you to express, then the door was opened. But if we push through, and sometimes people around us don't realize that them trying to love us and trying to hold us isn't helping us.
Yeah.
Being maybe a meter away is okay, but being a centimeter is too close.
That's the funny thing, Leigh-Anne, is that for someone who craves that sort of that emotion and that craves the energy from others, I didn't want it. And I look at that and go, it makes sense, but it didn't make sense at that point in time. But yeah, at the same time, I always remember as well, my husband kept saying to me, because we obviously had to do the pickups for the others, and he said, you've got to go. I said, I can't go. He said, just go, you've got to do one. And then once you've done one, it'll be fine. And I just didn't want to have to deal with 50,000 questions talking about the same thing that we'd just lived through already, that we hadn't processed. It's that trauma, isn't it? And I always remember, I still joke about it now with a friend that we're very good friends with. I pulled up, I drove in because I didn't want to walk, and I would normally walk. I did nothing normal. And I drove in and I parked, and I had I took a deep breath. And then a car next to me, and it was one of my older son's dads, who I didn't know particularly well at that point, but did know of. And he got out the car at the same time as me, and I thought, God, the timing is awful. I did not want to do this. And we were in the car park, and he just said to me, Kate, I'm so sorry to hear the news. And I just bawled. I bawled on his shoulder, and we laugh now. And I said, I snotted on his shoulder. and that cemented our friendship, and we're really good friends with their family now. But I still talk about that. And this is 11 years down the track now. But it was that. And then I felt, after I'd done that, it's such a bizarre feeling. Then I was like, okay, I can go now. I can go into the playground. I can talk to whoever wants to be spoken to, because I was okay. Yeah.
Because as the supporters, we forget that it's not about us.
Mm.
It's not about us having the news and the information.
Yeah.
It's about you. But again, how beautiful that the universe provided you with a safe sanctuary.
Mm.
And, because, I mean, what else could have happened? 4 other parents could have arrived and you could have been in a gaggle.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have neurological problems which sometimes limit my vocabulary access.
Yeah. Well, you're doing very well.
So if I do not use the right description, the attempt is there,
Yeah.
but I give up.
That's okay.
So you receive kindness during that time.
Mm.
As a giver, and I can feel that giving, as a giver, how did you cope with receiving it?
It's interesting because there were different ways people helped and supported us. Literally overnight, and I mean overnight, someone, and I still don't really know who coordinated it all, someone overnight coordinated our school community for a meal train. And we literally within 48 hours had a deep freezer delivered to then be filled with meals. We had someone organize a cleaner. We had people doing our lawns almost under the cover of darkness, because it's stuff that I look back now and go, wow, this was incredible. This is a massive undertaking to know how that now being involved in lots of those things as well, because, we're the first ones to put our hand up always, but it was huge. But I suppose we didn't really get asked. No, sorry, that's not true. People said, would you mind if, which I thought was beautiful, because people want to just help, and that was the best way. And we said, look, that would be great actually, because my husband and I would rotate 24-hour shifts and we'd swap, and then we'd come home, we'd have to be a mum or dad, and not having to think about a dinner and not having to go to the supermarket and then make a dinner was absolutely amazing. I mean, these people don't actually understand how much that helped us to just be a parent and to come home and just be present for our older two, who were also going through their own struggles and trauma. So I think whilst it was a very uncomfortable space in some things that people did for us, we also welcomed it because it helped so much for us. And we are forever grateful. Like, it was, we felt we really were. And I think I was sort of saying to you before we spoke online, is that whole sense of community all of a sudden just became bigger for me, because then you go, well, we're on the receiving end of it, and this is what it feels like. There is always, we are always going to make sure we do things for our community for this reason. Yeah.
And I know to be able to access that kind of community giving, it is important that we are part of the community.
Mm.
I know my best friend had a condition called multiple system atrophy. It initially got diagnosed as Parkinson's, but it became a terminal illness. And I organised a fundraiser for her.
Mm.
They needed a new bathroom
Mm-hmm.
that was specifically done. And we raised $15,000
Wow.
from the community, betting on virtual horses and having fashions on the field and people donating catering and all sorts of things. And it was amazing. I know that it gave so much to them, but it was the whole community who got together.
Mm. It's the power in numbers, isn't it? It's incredible when that happens.
It is. It's so beautiful. It sounds to me as though it changed. The way that all changed you was that you just became even more community minded.
Yes.
And more aware of what's going on around you, so that you can tap in and help.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a result, my husband and I, we made a pact that we would do absolutely anything we can to help raise money for childhood cancer, because we want no other family to go through this. So that's our thing. And it breaks our hearts every time we hear other families who have, and we always say, we use it as an analogy. There was a door that we never knew existed, and we went through that door very scared and very scared of the unknown. But on the other side, it's actually a beautiful space, because everybody's going through not the same journey, but similar trauma journeys. And so it's actually quite a tight-knit community beyond the childhood cancer door. But we always said we don't want anyone to follow us through.
Yes.
And so that's what we want, is to make sure we want that door shut, and we don't want people to even find that door. And so we would do what we can. And actually throughout Harvey's treatment, there were lots of organizations, charities that supported us, which we again felt really weird about taking things, because for us, we were in a very fortunate position. Financially, we were okay. I was able to just stop working. My husband was given sort of indefinite sick leave. We were in a very fortunate position, whereas other families not so fortunate. So we took that and said we will do absolutely everything we can to make sure we can help others. So during the treatment, we organised a fundraiser for this charity in particular. It was a pie night. We had 75 people, friends and family coming, and raised, I can't remember, tens of thousands of dollars for this charity. And then from that, my husband and I, he said, because he was talking to his friends, male friends, and women tend to talk like this, and we're very open and we are very used to talking. He said, but men don't talk, men don't do much. And bearing in mind, this is way before COVID, way before, we've come a long way in the last sort of 5-10 years. And he just said, I've just found out from some things, some of my friends have had some things happening like 2 years ago, and they haven't said anything, not cancer, but, everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I've really struggled with this, that, or the other. And so he said, this is not okay. We need to do something to get men together. So as a result of this, and it was that whole community again. And so we created an event called League of Gentlemen, which was aimed at men, and it was local men to get them together for a purpose. We had sport, because sport is generally a good thing for men, and it was AFL themed, I think, from the big, we did 2 or 3, and we did it at a venue, and it was a lunch and then an after party, and we raised money for Challenge, which is a charity that supported us, and they support children with cancer and their siblings. And our children and our family were very fortunate to be on the receiving end for lots of their services. So we paid them, we paid it forward and helped them and worked with them for this event. And so, it's funny, it's that sort of ripple effect, isn't it? That we then, from our, I suppose, trauma, we've gone, well, we need to help others because we're okay, and created this amazing event, which was very well received. And so it's,
That's wonderful. And that's kind of the reason I started this podcast, because I'm limited in what I can do.
Yeah.
However, there are so many people who are stuck in suddenly different moments, be that whatever.
Yeah.
That they are frozen and they think that they're the only one who's ever been through it, and that there is no way out. Yeah. And you and I both know that there is a path. Might be bumpy, but there is a path.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when did the idea of the glitter effect begin to form?
So after all of that, I then get more involved in our local community. We're just outside of Melbourne, and my husband and I our children were getting into sport, into AFL football in particular. So my husband and I suppose, were coerced, for want of a better word, by very good friends of ours who had been running an Auskick program for a few years, and they were looking for new coordinators. And so we put our hand up and we ran Auskick for 3 years. And that then led us to being involved in our local community, in our local football club. I then shortly was asked to come on as vice president, with a view to take on the presidency after COVID. This was after COVID, being the first female president of our football club and its 50-year history. So that was quite big, daunting. And then so it just cascaded from that. So I got involved in it. But during that time, I always, and my background as well, I must say, is public relations. And I've had my own business, public relations business for 15, 16 years, and always been in PR for over 25 years. And all the way through, I've worked in not-for-profit space or education or health. So it's always been that sort of, I call it warm, fluffy, fuzzy stuff. And I've always said, make sure when you work, wherever you, or if you're in volunteering or anything, make sure you spread your sparkle. I've always said, spread your sparkle, find your sparkle, spread your sparkle, and be true to your sparkle. And just remember, when your sparkle dulls, jog on, it's time to go. And that's okay. And that can be translated into the business world. It can be translated into community. It can be translated into so many things. And so I said that, to a few people when I was involved in my football club. And then I got volunteer burnout from being in that position, and really just had to take a full step back and say, enough's enough. It was becoming sort of detrimental to my family. It was taking up too much time, but that's because I gave it too much time. It's that double-edged sword, isn't it? And so I sat and reflected, and I said to my husband, public relations is not doing it for me anymore. I can't do it. So I said, I'm closing my business and I'm going to spend the summer just working out. I said, every year I set myself a goal of learning a new skill. And I just said to him, I think I want to learn how to podcast. And he's so supportive of me. Honestly, I cannot sing his praises enough. He was like, oh, right ho. And obviously going, here we go again. There's something else. And I said, yeah, I'm going to think about podcast. And that was sort of towards the end of 2024. I spent sort of the end of that and the sort of over summer having a good sort of soul searching on holiday and everything. And all of a sudden I booked myself into a podcast course through a local radio station. And I still had no idea what I was doing my podcast on, but roughly. And I was literally on the day 2 of the podcast course. I've just gone, the glitter effect. It's the glitter effect. And that was it. I was in an Uber on the way to, so it was nothing more than that. I just sat there and it just came to me. And then from that, my gosh, all of a sudden I'm like, yes. And then I've gone, this is what it is, and fine tuned it. But then go back a step. It also came to me as well because I got, as you said in the intro, I was awarded the Manningham Volunteer of the Year, or jointly. There was another guy from our community who also got awarded it. And I was so embarrassed. And I sat on it and didn't tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to know that. That's not what I do it for. And so I sat on it. And then over the summer, I'm like, hang on a minute. This means something. This is telling me something, and this is the world, and I'm quite spiritual like you. And I said, this is the world telling me something, and it's telling me that community is my jam. Community is my heart and soul. And every time I came back to that. And so, yeah, the long story short, that's basically how my new passion project, the Glitter Effect, was born.
Wow. So podcast, and just like any idea that we have, isn't it? It's sort of like grows, I don't know, are they octopuses? They grow tentacles.
Yes, they do.
And so you find yourself, I can imagine there being events and, trainings and all sorts of things.
And that's it. So I've started it as a podcast. So it's basically a podcast that, and my sort of elevator pitch, if you like, is it's a podcast that shines the light on movers, shakers and change makers and all around living legends of our communities who basically spread their glitter with purpose and heart. And the whole premise is that I firmly believe everybody has glitter to spread where they have that purpose and heart. They've just got to find it. Some people find that very easily. Some people don't. Some people spread it further than others. Some people are very small with their spreading, but it's very much, it's tangible. And the more people I speak to, everyone's like, yes, I love that, because you can envisage, glitter. I speak to a lot of mums and they're like, well, gee, craft projects, glitter gets everywhere. And we're like, yes, that's the whole point. It gets everywhere. And so everyone gets it. And so it's a very tangible thing. Yeah. And I love glitter. I love it.
Well, it sounds like you love it. And what just popped into my thoughts, and I don't know whether it's ever occurred to you, but like, I don't know whether you've ever read the 5 love languages,
Yes. A while
right?
ago. I need to reread it, actually.
And I think that there are dialects of love languages, right? I think just like not all Australians sound the same.
Yes.
I think we have hybrids of love languages, and sometimes we need a vehicle or a visual to help us see what ours is.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes we only have we have money but no time,
Yeah.
and sometimes we have time and no money. And so, understanding that there are those who do it in their own way, but they are recognized as doing it, and that maybe glitter as a currency is more exciting to me than cryptocurrency. And I'm not sure what the Aussie dollar is doing at the moment, but, glitter currency, I see that, as being pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's the premise of it. Is it starting as a podcast, and I'll let it grow organically, but I would like to see it more become a movement as opposed to just a podcast, so that people grab this concept. And everybody I've spoken to, and gosh, trust me, it took me, the imposter syndrome sat on my shoulder for a long time, and I didn't really tell anyone. And again, my husband, who is my biggest cheerleader, he was the one telling everybody when I first got the Manningham Council Award. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to know. And he was so proud and telling everybody. And then again, he was the one telling everybody, no, Kate's going to do a podcast. And I remember it was a friend's 40th birthday party just before Christmas, or just early in the year. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to be interested, Joel. They're a bunch of engineers. It's not going to be them. They're not really glitter. And I really coyly went, I'm just going to do this. And they were like, and I lost a couple. A couple went, right you are, and moved on. And then all of a sudden there were 2 that went, I love that. That's so good. And then I'm like, some people do like it outside of my really supportive and loving family and friends. And then I always remember I was giving blood, and the first time I told a stranger about the glitter effect was huge. Giving blood, and a guy walked in and with an entourage of people, and I've since interviewed him, and I'm in touch with him now, and his name is Simo Braun, and he has a concept called the Bloody Good Tour. He's just coming to the end of a year on the road, visiting absolutely every single blood donor centre in Australia with his 3 young children. And he was basically trying to encourage more Australians to save lives. And I was talking to him, and I said, I bravely sat there, and I was like, I really need to say something to him. And I had nothing. I've got nothing. I've got no business cards. I've got nothing. I'm just giving blood. And I still don't have business cards. But I sat there and I thought, I need to tell him. He's this sort of person. And I said, I must tell you, I'd love to catch up with you because I'm launching a podcast and I think you'd be an amazing guest, but I haven't launched it yet. And I told him about it, and he said, Kate, I love that. I love the glitter effect concept. And he goes, I actually tell people I've spreading glitter, and I kept in touch with him since. And I said it was because of that. I've gone, yes, there's something in this. People will like it, or they won't like it, and that's fine. But talking to him was a massive turning point because I didn't know him. So, and I told him that, I only told him that recently when I interviewed him, and I said, you're the reason I'm here right now, because it made me believe that I have something. Imposter syndrome is an ugly thing.
Well, but I mean, I was exactly the same I thought of the idea, and I thought of the people it could help. So I don't know whether you've experienced, Kate, but sometimes when people have a chronic illness, it becomes their identity. And there are rules to that illness. And I was afraid with the thought of, fighting through the not good enough and fighting through I don't know anybody.
Yep.
And then it was like, well, am I breaking the rules? Because I can put together a period of time where I seem, look, sound, act fine. Now, no one's going to see the video of me asleep this afternoon and tomorrow and Sunday. They're only going to see this video. But I decided that it was important because the message, like your message, is so important that I had to have a go. And if I get criticized, so be it.
Yeah, it's a funny one though, isn't it? Because particularly when it's something that is, and I call it a passion. It's a passion project for me right now. And when someone doesn't like your passion, it's a funny feeling. You can't. I don't have any emotion attached to it. It's just you go, that's okay. You don't have to like it. But to hear people that do, they're the ones you need to listen to, because you can't be everything to everyone. And that's, can you? And it's that whole, you've got to go through that journey. But when you're putting yourself out there, and particularly for me, I mean, for you, it's very different as well. But, 25 years plus in PR, I was very much behind the lens. So I could tell people what to say on interviews. I could get them interviews, but to actually I could interview people, but then I'm not a journalist, I'm a PR. So, it was very different. And then for you to invite me on as a guest, gee, I'm like, oh, this is all very awkward. So, but, I'm like, no, come on, Kate, put your big girl pants on. It's time to really, you got to do this. So, yeah, but then you go, those spaces are really good to be in too, because they make you look at yourself and question what you're doing and reaffirm what you're doing and give you that positivity and that confidence. And so whilst the feelings might not feel great, once you get through the other side, you go, yeah, that's great. So, yeah.
So you hold the space for so many stories on your podcast. And what has been the key thread that you've noticed that is like jumping out and glaring at you, that you can see it everywhere?
Such a good question, Leigh-Anne. And I think really it's giving my confidence back in humanity and society, that we absolutely, everyday people, are constantly doing incredible things. And I'm not even scratching the surface with the people I'm talking to, because there are so many people. And again, people aren't doing these things to be noted about it. They're doing it because they want to fill their heart and fill their purpose. So it's just realizing that there are so many incredible people who are givers out there that we just don't hear about. In a world that's very heavy, particularly at the moment, I think, we don't have enough good news. And this is that good news. These are those good news stories that we need more of, because I think more people will learn from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the ideas that I had was the most popular podcasts are true crime.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what about true lives? Right? I would like the kind of podcasts we're offering to be the new go-to place. Hey, we have everyday people doing everyday amazing things with everyday struggles, and we're all interesting, and we don't have to feed someone mushroom meat thing.
Yep.
Right? To be worthy of conversation.
Yeah. And I think that you're absolutely right, Leigh-Anne. And also, since the dawn of time, and this is where my PR skills come into play, we've been telling stories. Storytelling has been going on for centuries before the written word. So, it's it's so important to continue that skill in whatever way you can. And that's where I think what you're doing and so many things like that, people love stories about other people's lives. That's just human interest, isn't it? Humans like it, but it's just making sure you find the right people to listen to it.
Exactly. And you know what? If they don't listen to it all, that's fine. If they get out of it, what they'd like, I love everybody to share. For the person who you don't know needs to hear a message from the person who's just said it.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you could go back now to the early moment with Harvey, what would you whisper to yourself now, knowing through what you've lived and what you've built and the hopes and dreams that you have for the future? What would you tell you?
I would tell myself, it sounds really corny, but it is going to be okay. You've got a village, and that whole thing, it takes a village. You have your village, and your village will be there for as long as you need them and beyond, and that your children are going to be okay. And that the important thing is, and I think this is the thing, is it really highlighted the importance of the here and now and trying to be present and just family. My family is the most important thing to me. My husband and my 3 children, they are the most important thing to me. So knowing that we got through this together, it was just, I suppose I would reiterate that you'll be okay. You'll be a good family unit as a result of this. And we're not perfect by any means, don't get me wrong. It's not rainbows and lollipops. And there's certainly, things that will come out from my older 2 and the younger one as well throughout time. And we're very acutely aware of that. And we work with them based on this trauma. We're still not 100% convinced that they've all addressed it. But, I firmly believe we're a stronger unit. My husband and I are definitely a stronger unit as a result of this journey. So I think I would just tell myself that. Just stick at it. Just be me, be you, and the rest will fall into place. Concentrate on what's important to you at that moment in time.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. And it's so good to hear that the 3 boys are charging along just like 3 Aussie lads.
Yeah, well, they're 15, 13 and 11 now, so I'm in the thick of it.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, hairy legs. Here we go.
That's one thing, yep.
All right. Well, us wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on the Suddenly Different podcast. So I leave you with, sometimes a story doesn't end, it settles gently, like glitter catching the light as it falls. Kate reminded us today that impact doesn't always arrive with noise and headlines. Sometimes it moves quietly through a home-cooked meal left at your door, a warm hand on your shoulder, a stranger who becomes your lifeline without even realizing it. And sometimes it's you who's holding that light for someone else without even knowing. If Kate's story stirred something in you, a memory in your heart, a breath you didn't realize you were holding, I invite you to stay with it. Let it land in your body. Let it ask you where it wants to shine from. Where have you been held? And where have you made someone else's space to allow them to breathe? You don't have to start a movement to matter, but maybe, like Kate, you'll find that the moment life cracked you open was almost also the moment you began to sparkle in ways you never expected. Until next time, may you notice the glitter in the ordinary, and may you never underestimate the power of simply showing up. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much, Leigh-Anne. I've loved this. Thank you.
Wonderful. This has been Suddenly Different. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, and I'm so grateful you shared your time with me. If you felt a spark, a tear, or a moment of recognition, I hope you'll pass that gift along by sharing this show. Take a deep breath, trust your path, and I'll meet you back here soon.